Good morning. Today we're going to attempt to look at Numbers 10 through 14. Numbers 10 begins with God telling Moses to have 2 silver trumpets made, make them out of hammered work, and these trumpets will be used to summon the congregation, the whole tribe of Israel together at times, and other times just to summon the 70 elders, the 70 leaders that are chosen. Sometimes they will sound they will blow so that the Israelites will know that it's time to leave camp, to set out to another camp. Other times they will use these trumpets to blow the horn to sound their arrival against their enemies, the people that they will be displacing in the land. And God spells all of this out for them. And then in verse 11, it says, in the second year, the second month, on the 20th day, the cloud lifts over the tent, and it's a signal for the people to move. So a couple of weeks after the census was taken there, they are to set out. So the tabernacle, everything is taken down, and the proper tribes, take the poles and the tent, and the Kohathites are, they're carrying the holies on their shoulders the way they're supposed to be, and they set out on the march as God had spelled out, and the camp of Dan is the rear guard. They're the last ones to come moving out, and one of this verse 29 says, Moses said to Hobab, son of Reuel the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, this person has been with them as they've been going, and Moses says, why don't you come with us? And the guy says, no, I'm going to go back home. And then Moses says, don't leave us, for you know where we should camp. And moreover, if you go with us, whatever the Lord does for us, we will do for you. So the camp set out, and the end of chapter 10, whenever the ark set out, when they were moving camp, Moses would say, arise, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered, let your foes flee before you. And whenever it came to rest, he would then say, return, O Lord, for the 10,000s of thousands of Israel. So as they set out, he asked the Lord to lead and guide them. And as they settled again, it's return, Lord, into our midst and into our camp. Chapter 11, the people start complaining about just having this manna to eat. And they were remembering back in Egypt how they had fish and all this stuff, and fresh melons and fresh fruit and all of that stuff. And then they tell us about what this manna is like and how it could be prepared and how it tastes. But, the people are all complaining against Moses, like it's his fault. But of course, God hears this. And the Lord becomes angry, and Moses is displeased as well. And God is ready to act against these Israelites. And Moses, speaks up for them. And this is when then the Lord says to Moses, gather 70 of the elders. And he gathers these elders together. And as we get into verse 25 of chapter 11, the Lord came down, took some of the spirit that was on Moses and gave to each of these 70. So the Lord had given Moses, special powers. The Spirit of the Lord was with him, more or less, giving him strength. But so he gave a portion of what Moses had to these 70 elders so that they would be able to assist Moses. And it says, within the Spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but didn't do so again. But two of them remained in the camp, Eldad and Medad, and the Spirit of God was, these were two that the Spirit had come upon, and they continued to prophesy. And it says Joshua, son of Nun, the assistant of Moses, one of the chosen, said, my Lord Moses, stop them. So this Joshua, and it tells us earlier that Moses changed Joshua's name from whatever it was to Joshua. But Moses said, are you jealous for my sake? Moses is saying, these guys are helping me out. Don't worry about that, And so they came back, and And God had said that, to them, because they were complaining about just the manna and stuff, he said, I'm going to provide so much meat for them that they're going to eat it for a month and they're just going to get sick of it. It's going to come out of their ears and their mouths and they're going to be sick of it. And Moses wonders, well, where is all this going to come from? And God causes these quail to fall all around the camp, and it says 2 cubits deep on the ground. And a cubit is about 18 inches, so about 3 feet deep. These quail were on the ground, and people went out and they gathered all of this meat. Anyway, chapter 12, they were, camping at this spot, and Miriam and Aaron and Moses, and Miriam was a sister of Aaron and Moses, and we'll hear more about her later on, but these three, the Lord says to these three, come out here to the tent of the meeting. So they come out. The Lord appeared that way and spoke to them and spoke somewhat against the people. But Miriam came out of this deal leprous, as white as snow, it says in the Bible. And, Moses and Aaron speak up, or, Aaron says to Moses, and, Lord, don't punish us for sin that we have so foolishly committed, and so they're pleading with God for Miriam. And he says, set her outside of the camp for 7 days, and then she can come back in, and they do this. And so the camp didn't move for those 7 days. And then chapter 13, the Lord says, send out spies to the land of Canaan. I mean, God is intending that these people will get to this promised land soon. I mean, they're right there close. And so they send out spies to this, to scout out the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the Israelites, he says. And they go, and it names all of these spies or a bunch of these spies that set out anyway. And this is where, I guess in verse 16, that Moses changed the name of Hosea, son of Nun, to Joshua. And so we'd already heard about, Joshua, the son of Nun over there, but now here we were told of the name change that I already had mentioned. So they go up and they scout out this land, and they spent 40 days scouting out the land, and it was, they had quite a distance to cover, and they were doing a good job of scouting, and probably needed to be a little bit secretive, keep themselves concealed, but they did a good job of scouting and spying, and they came back, and they were telling Moses and everyone about the land, and how it was a land flowing with milk and honey. It was everything that God had promised, but it had all these people in it. And some of the people, some of the Nephilims, the Anakites, were sound like we were giants. They were big people. It says that, we hardly came up. We seemed like grasshoppers to them. We were afraid of them. And they seemed like they were powerful people. And so these spies recommended, hey, we can't go. We aren't going to be able to stand against these people. They're going to destroy us. And so chapter 14 begins with the congregation raising a large cry, and the people wept that night. And the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron. And it's again, oh, that we had died in the land of Egypt, or that we would die in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us here that we're going to all die by the sword? It's just, we're helpless. We're going to, they're going to kill us all. Just giving up. And again, and then it says, some of them said, let's choose a captain and go back to Egypt. They want to go back to slavery, to the forced labor that they were doing, and they forgot. They had forgotten, and it's a part of, the good old days mentality. But God hears them crying out against him, and he's ready to destroy them all. In verse 11 of chapter 14, the Lord says to Moses, how long will these people despise me? How long will they refuse? I will strike them with pestilence. I will disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater than these bums. Well, he doesn't say bums, but God's fed up with them. But Moses says, this is what the Egyptians would say. I mean, if you do this, this is just going to be exactly what people would say. I mean, but remember, and so Moses tells God now, he says, remember what you said. You know, verse 18, this is Moses, attack on God. Remember, this is what you said. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but by no means cleansing the guilty. You know, remember, God, what you said about how you are? And God relents, and he forgives the iniquity. But right here is where it says now that because God is upset with these people and they haven't listened to him, that as we read through the rest of this chapter, the Israelites will spend 1 year of wandering in the wilderness for each of the 40 days that the spies were out spying the land out. So this is where the 40 days in the wilderness, 40 years in the wilderness come from. And not only that, but God says that not one of you, other than Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, will enter the promised land. Your offspring, your children will, but none of you, the first generation who left Egypt, will enter the promised land as a punishment, as a consequence, because of their unfaithfulness. And just a reminder, God is always faithful to us and his promises to us.